4 minutes. In exactly that time, a city of 20,000 people vanished forever. History calls it a disaster. Some call it a small version of the apocalypse. This is Pompeii. Every year, 4 million people walk through these streets. They take photos, they read the signs, they look at the ruins. But almost none of them stop to think about what this place actually is. This is not a tourist attraction. This is a graveyard. The graveyard of an entire city, frozen in a single moment, October 24th, 79 AD. And beneath these stones, beneath this ash, the last 24 hours of 20,000 lives are still waiting to be heard. This is their story, and this is Pompeii's last 24 hours. To understand what happened in Pompeii, you first need to understand who ruled Rome at that time and what he had done just 9 years before. His name was Titus, son of Emperor Vespasian, a brilliant military commander, and the man who, in 70 AD, besieged Jerusalem and burned the Second Temple of God to the ground, a temple that had stood for centuries, the holiest place on earth for the Jewish people. Gone in a single day, turned to ash and smoke. The Jewish people were scattered, their holiest city destroyed, their temple gone. And then, exactly 9 years later, the city that celebrated that destruction was buried alive. Coincidence? The ancient world did not think so. But we will come back to that. First, let us understand Pompeii itself. In 79 AD, Pompeii was one of Rome's most prosperous trading cities. 20,000 people, grand temples, theaters, public baths, restaurants, even a 20,000-seat amphitheater. The streets were loud, the wine flowed freely, trade never stopped. The city had everything and feared nothing, not even the green silent mountain that watched over them all. But the mountain had been warning them for years. Nobody listened. 17 years before the disaster, on February 5th, 62 AD, a massive earthquake shook the entire region. Historian Tacitus described it as catastrophic. Almost every building in Pompeii was damaged. Walls cracked, temples collapsed. The water system failed completely. The people of Pompeii faced a choice: leave or rebuild. They rebuilt. For 17 years, construction never stopped. New temples, new homes, new streets. The city rose again, or so they believed. But here is what they did not know. The earthquake of 62 AD was not a random event. This was Vesuvius waking up. The same volcanic pressure that would eventually tear the mountain apart was already building beneath their feet. Every tremor, every cracked wall, every dried-up spring was the mountain warning them. And in the 4 days before the eruption, the warnings became impossible to ignore. Wells dried up overnight. The ground shook constantly. Animals refused to eat. Dogs disappeared. Birds stopped singing. Pliny the Younger later wrote, "The tremors were so frequent that people had simply grown used to them." In Campania, earthquakes were nothing unusual. Nothing unusual. Until October 24th, the last morning that word would ever apply. October 24th, 79 AD. Early morning. Pompeii wakes up like any other day. The bakeries opened first. Archaeologists found 33 bakeries in Pompeii, and in one of them, 81 loaves of bread were still in the oven when the city died. Still there. 2,000 years later, the streets fill with noise. Merchants set up their stalls. Children run through the narrow alleyways. Somewhere a dog barks. A cart rolls over cobblestones. Nobody knows this is the last morning. In the harbor, fishermen push their boats out. Farmers tend their vineyards on the slopes of Vesuvius itself, not knowing they are working on top of a sleeping giant. The mountain looks the same as it always has, green, peaceful, silent. But deep beneath, Miles below the surface, something terrible has been building for decades, expanding, pressing upward, searching for a way out, and at exactly 1 o'clock in the afternoon, it finds one. 1 p.m., October 24th, 79 AD. The ground shakes, once, twice, then silence. And then Vesuvius tears itself apart. A column of superheated gas, ash, and rock explodes upward, 33 kilometers into the sky, higher than any plane flies today, into the stratosphere itself. The sound is heard hundreds of kilometers away, 35 kilometers away. 17-year-old Pliny the Younger is sitting with his mother. He looks up and sees something he will spend the rest of his life trying to describe. He writes, "It looked like a pine tree, rising on a long trunk, then spreading into branches at the top, sometimes bright, sometimes dark and spotted. Rocks begin raining down on Pompeii, first small, then fist-sized. Roofs begin cracking under the weight. And now, the most terrible choice of their lives, run through falling rocks or stay and wait inside. 17,000 people run, they survive, but 2,000 stay. Some were slaves, chained to their posts. Archaeologists found one still chained to a wall. He never had a choice. Some were wealthy, too much to leave behind. Some were mothers who could not find their children in the chaos, who refused to leave without them, and some were simply too afraid to move. By midnight, streets were buried under 3 meters of ash, darkness so complete, darker than any moonless night, like a lamp put out in a sealed room, and still, Vesuvius was not finished. The worst was yet to come. While 20,000 people were running away from Vesuvius, one man was sailing toward it. His name was Pliny the Elder, 56 years old, commander of the Roman fleet, and one of the greatest minds in the ancient world. A man who never stopped working, never stopped writing. In his lifetime, 37 volumes of encyclopedias, by hand, by candlelight. On the afternoon of October 24th, Pliny the Elder was working at his desk when his sister rushed in. She pointed to the sky. He looked up and saw the cloud. For a moment, the scientist in him took over. He ordered a small boat. He wanted to observe, to record, to understand. But then, a letter arrived from a woman named Rectina, a friend, trapped at the foot of Vesuvius. The sea was her only escape, but the waves were too high. She wrote simply, "Please come. Save us." Pliny the Elder read the letter and made a decision that would cost him his life. He canceled the small boat and ordered the entire fleet to launch. What began as a desire for knowledge became an act of heroism. The fleet sailed toward the fire, toward the falling ash, toward the screaming mountain. Other captains turned back. Pliny the Elder stood at the helm and said, "Fortune favors the brave." He landed at Stabiae, found his friend terrified, paralyzed with fear. And here, the story becomes strange. In the middle of the worst disaster in Roman history, he calmly asked for a bath, then dinner, then went to sleep. Was he truly that calm, or was he trying to stop the panic around him? We will never know, because he never woke up. His companions tied pillows to their heads and stepped outside. Pliny the Elder collapsed. When his body was found 2 days later, he looked peaceful, untouched, as if sleeping. The greatest scholar of the ancient world died trying to save others, or so the story goes. Remember, the only source we have is his nephew, a young man who loved his uncle deeply. Did Pliny the Elder die a hero? Almost certainly. Was every detail exactly as described? That we can never be sure. October 25th, before dawn. For those still alive in Pompeii, the night had become a nightmare without end. Every street, every door, every window buried under 3 meters of ash. The city that had woken up just 18 hours ago was already gone. Those hiding in cellars could hear the weight above them, cracking, groaning. Some roofs had already collapsed, crushing everyone inside. Some tried to escape in the darkness. They wrapped cloth around their faces. They tied cushions to their heads. They stepped outside and immediately sank into ash up to their knees. A few made it, most did not. And then, at approximately 6:30 in the morning, everything changed. Deep inside Vesuvius, the eruption column collapsed. 6 pyroclastic surges, one after another, moving at 160 kilometers per hour, 300 degrees Celsius. For the 2,000 people still inside Pompeii, death came in a single breath. In 4 minutes, a city of 20,000 people became a graveyard. And then, silence. 1,500 years of silence. In 1870, archaeologist Fiorelli discovered something remarkable. Where bodies had decomposed under the ash, hollow spaces remained. He filled them with plaster, and the dead came back. A man covering his face, a dog still chained to its post, a family huddled together, a father's arm still around his child. And just weeks ago, April 2026, archaeologists found a man outside Pompeii's gates, running. In his hand, a small clay lamp. On his head, a ceramic bowl tied with rope. In his pocket, 10 bronze coins, everything he owned. He was so close to the sea, but the pyroclastic surge was faster. His name, we will never know. His story, we will never forget. But behind this event, there are questions that remain unanswered. In 70 AD, Titus destroyed God's temple. In 79 AD, his city was destroyed. In 80 AD, Rome itself caught fire. In 81 AD, Titus died. Suddenly, mysteriously, at just 41 years old, 4 catastrophes in 4 consecutive years. History calls it coincidence. Some call it something else. Shortly after the eruption, an ancient text was written. Listen to what it says. When fire rises from a crack in the earth of Italy, reaching the sky, it will burn many cities and destroy many people. A prophecy? Or coincidence? Roman historian Cassius Dio recorded something extraordinary. During the eruption, enormous figures were seen moving through the smoke and flames above the mountain. Mass hallucination, volcanic gases causing visions, or something else entirely? We cannot know. Today, Pompeii receives over 4 million visitors every year. Excavations continue. 20% of the city has never been excavated. With every dig, a new secret. 2,000 years later, the city is still talking. And Vesuvius, it last erupted in 1944. Today, 700,000 people live in what scientists call the red zone. If it erupts again, they will have less time to escape than the people of Pompeii. The evacuation plan takes 72 hours. Vesuvius could give just 24 hours warning. Pompeii taught us much. The roads they built, the food they ate, the art they created, the lives they lived. But perhaps the greatest lesson is the one they died teaching us. The warnings were there. The signs were clear. The mountain had been speaking for 17 years. Nobody listened. History does not repeat itself, but it does whisper. The question, as it has always been, is whether we are listening. If this story moved you, subscribe. Because next time we go even deeper into the secrets history tried to bury, just like Vesuvius buried Pompeii, but could not keep buried forever.